welcome. I am Pamela Martin from Fall River Government Television. We are reporting live here at Government Center.
And I'm Keith Tebow from FRC Media. Our dual coverage tonight as we look at the city of Fall River making history again with a second recall election in a little over 4 years. And it's been an exciting time, and we'll find out tonight whether Mayor Jaziel Correa will survive a recall effort.
And we have some color commentary by a face that probably looks familiar to many of you, Attorney and County Commissioner John Mitchell. Thank you so much
for
Pam.
adding Thanks for inviting me. Keith, good to be with you again. Me and Keith did this a couple of years ago.
We did this a few years ago,
times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you're familiar with the process, being mayor.
Didn't have recalls, though, back then.
Yeah, huh?
They grow on trees now.
From 91 to 96, you're mayor.
Correct.
So,
way back.
Just getting started in our careers, and we had John Mitchell here in office. And then on the city council from 84 to 91. So you've been with city politics for a while.
I was involved in a long time. Before that, I worked for Mayor Viveris as a city attorney, and enjoy it. And it's a great city, and hopefully this will resolve, and we'll get back on track with some leadership that shows a little stability for the city.
Well, Keith and I were talking earlier, and we asked you on the cuff, and you said you wouldn't mind speaking about it. You thought about running, but returned out by with a large number of candidates?
Yeah, in the short time period, the number of candidates, the way the field brought down, 3 candidates from the North End. I've lived there for years. And, just thought the field was there. It's roughly an 8-week campaign, and certainly not set up the way some of the other candidates were for it. They've run locally and not. And very content on the county commission. Something I never really thought of, got appointed to, and just enjoy. We've done a lot with the agricultural school.
Yes.
The county's in good financial shape, and it's just a nice local taste of government again.
He also mentioned too, Keith, though, that he likes his lifestyle now, right? Because being a mayor is 24/7.
That's how I recall it.
I don't think it's changed much.
Watch that word recall, how you use that word around here tonight. We're going to look at some video that was taken yesterday over at Government Center, where we are now. We have 2 precincts here behind us, and of course the polls have just closed. That video of the poll workers setting up on Monday, as was a routine that now happens from Kelly Susie Young, our election commissioner, and the folks are setting up for the polling for today. Polls did open indeed at 7 a.m. this morning and just closed a mere few minutes ago. Mayor Mitchell, any predictions for us tonight?
No, not at all. It's such a split election. You got a number of very strong vote getters. You got a woman candidate who's presented herself well, strong on the issues, and everyone. I mean, you got the leading vote getter on the school committee the last few times. You've got a councilor who's for years been a strong vote getter. The mayor, who's certainly proven himself to be a very formidable candidate and campaigner, and Kyle Riley, who's been away a while but ran a great campaign and raised money and presented himself well.
What's at stake tonight, of course, is the second recall here in the city of Fall River in a little over 4 years. Mayor Jaziel Correa, of course, back in October, was arrested and indicted on 13 federal counts, 9 fraud counts and wire fraud, and 4 counts of tax fraud, and that precipitated this recall. 10 residents took recall papers out soon thereafter. The process went through. The election was set earlier this year, and that's where we're having the election today. Now, the election, for people who don't know, is actually in 2 parts. The first part is the recall itself, in that voters are being asked whether they wish to recall Mayor Jaziel Correa. And then the second part of the ballot, which has a list of candidates for mayor, that really won't take effect unless the recall is successful.
Correct,
So that's important to note as we start looking at the results when they start coming in, hopefully very soon.
I mean, I did bring the sample ballot along, and it seems so bare, doesn't it? Like,
it was
oh boy, there's
it's a quick vote, that's for sure. No referendum,
No
anything like that. So it was a nice quick vote.
So Kelly Susie Young is our election commissioner. As I mentioned earlier, she ordered today 50,000 ballots, and she said this election will be treated the same as any other state or city election, so it'll cost the city approximately $65,000 for the recall election. When I talked with Kelly Monday at Calvary Temple in the North End, she told us the current voting machines date back to 1997. City Council, however, did appropriate $270,000 to purchase new voting machines. I asked her about that. So we have some exciting news to come out of the Election Commissioner's office, and that is that the city is getting new voting machines. Tell me about those. When will they arrive, and what election will they be used for?
Okay, so we should be getting them around June, and they will be used for the September 17th preliminary election, which is actually a city election.
Easy to use, I hope.
Yes, more user-friendly, more user-friendly for the wardens and clerks and the polling locations, more friendly for the voter. If they make a mistake, it lets them know that the mistake was made, so they do get three tries to be able to vote.
You said this election will cost approximately $65,000 like any other election, correct?
Yes, every election it costs approximately between 60 and 65,000. We also have same place. It's polling locations. We pay for rental for the polling locations, the police offices, the poll workers, which is the big chunk of it. And a lot of other like little things, pens, markers, a lot of little things that go along with it. So no, it's roughly the same amount that we pay.
Give us some predictions on voter turnout, please. It's a tough one to call, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
The last recall was around approximately 32%. So we're hoping at least to get that or surpass it. We always wish for 100%, and we know that's not going to happen. So I'm saying between 25 and 30. That'll be a good number. And if it's higher, then I'm glad I'll be wrong.
Okay, thank you again to Kelly Susie Young, okay.
Thank you for
Live
coming.
television, right? Okay, live television. Mayor Mitchell, you have some numbers for us?
We
You can't
do,
read them
from
off?
7B, Mayor Carrera in the lead with 113, Paul Coogan with 94, Kyle Riley 40, Joe Camara 32, and Erica Scott Pacheco 25, it looks like. So
What about the recall question itself?
the recall question, it was defeated, 105 to 122. So
So what do you think? It's early, polls closed,
Yeah,
a mere
I mean,
7
it's,
minutes ago?
7B had 390 votes last time in the last recall. This time it looks like it's a little short of that, roughly about 300 votes, a little bit more. So a little lower. Who knows if that's reflective? But I thought in the 14 recall, I didn't realize the turnout. It was almost 17,000, which
Yeah.
is about 35, 36%.
I believe it
Yeah.
was, yeah.
And now
So
they're
that
saying
was a
today
good.
might be as low as 20%.
Yeah, it
right?
doesn't seem from that it's quite that low, but.
Kelly Susie Young told me that it was a 30%, 32% turnout for the last election with just over, I think it was 40,000 voters. Not even that much, actually.
Yeah, again, let me just correct on I unfortunately have to expand
I
it
understand.
passed 166 to 122, so.
166 to 122. We were wondering, too, a little bit about, can you put some thought process for us into what it's like on election night? I mean, I have known you since 1989,
Nerve-wracking.
so
It's always been
nerve-wracking.
nerve-wracking, yeah. I mean, I can't imagine what the candidates are going through. You work, and then all of a sudden it ends.
Yep.
And I used to stay out at the polls right till 8 o'clock, shaking hands. Partly you wanted to meet the last voter, but also, what else are you going to do? You're nervous. You're thinking about what might happen, what you would say, win or lose. And it's tense because you put so much into it. And I give credit to everyone who runs.
Absolutely.
Nowadays it's like, oh, what are they up to? They're terrible. Most people who do it, they've got the best intentions. They work hard. It's hard to explain to people why you do it. And it's an aptitude. It's, an inclination like anything else.
Especially on a small scale.
Yeah,
city
absolutely,
level.
yeah.
And I know all the candidates personally. You do too, Keith.
Right.
Mayor does as well. Just good people, I think. I
Right.
mean, on a personal level and the way they've treated me professionally.
Right. And that's all you can ask for. And in their defense, they're all running because they feel they can do the best for this city.
Yep.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And anyone who runs for office, whether you're running for city council, school committee, mayor, county commissioner, right? You feel that you bring some skills to that position, and you can make a difference.
The biggest thing is the time commitment and the time away from whatever you do, your job, your family, your ordinary pursuits. It's a full commitment. I mean, to run for a mayor in a city like this, particularly in an election like this, it was over 8-9 weeks.
Right.
It's every hour of every day. And again, it's too bad the climate, not just here, but I mean nationwide is what it is, that somehow
divisive,
they're
and
all.
we even see it on the city level, huh?
Yeah,
On a
yeah, you
small
see it
scale.
across that. What are they up to? What it's been, and that's always been a underside and part of politics. But again, for most people, it's a belief that they can correct things, do better. I will tell you, mayor is one office you can do things.
Right.
It's not a legislative body. You're not sitting around talking and following the lead and passing resolutions. I mean, within the limitations of it, there's a lot you can do. You can improve the city. You can make things happen. And good luck to whoever wins. Because
I do want to remind people we are going to be out and about tonight as the election continues. We do have cameras at Mayor Correa's headquarters tonight, which is at Barrett's Waterfront. We also have cameras at Paul Coogan's headquarters, which is at Scotty's right up the street, short walk from here. And you can see there's our live video right now from Barrett's down at the waterfront. And we hope to hear from Mayor Correa. We will hear from Mayor Correa sometime this evening, regardless of the outcome. And we also have some other cameras out with some of the other candidates as well. Mayor, one of the things I want to bring up with you, if I can, in terms of you had the opportunity to run as a city councilor and as mayor. City council, of course, you can get votes because you can be one of 9. When you run as mayor, you're, except for tonight, really one-on-one. How different is that in terms of
it's tremendously different because as a councilor, and you see it in council races, very little criticism of other candidates. Very little give and take. I mean, sometimes people might get mad at each other, but you can't really attack anyone because their friends may be a 4th vote for you or a 6th vote for you. Whereas once you're running head to head, it's all different. You've got to present yourself, your policies. You got to make distinctions between you and other candidates, and especially running for mayor in a city like this, where the mayor has such authority and is such the center of the budget, the hiring, contracting, the direction of the city. You've got to be prepared to present what you plan to do and show how you differ from other candidates.
Now, when you ran in your transition between city councilor to mayor, did you have a feeling that you would potentially lose some votes? Because some people will just check nine names off because, I know of him, but it may not be enough for that person to get your 1 vote in mayor.
Oh, yeah, that was the whole,
That's the
you
whole
had
thing,
no
right?
idea. And you knew there were people, I mean, there were people I knew who I believe probably would have voted for me for council and did, but they were with other candidates.
Right.
And, they weren't splitting votes anymore. It was
Splitting votes.
one and done, that was it. So,
That is a big difference.
yeah, it's a big difference. The biggest difference is, though, how you campaign
Right.
and how you handle yourself as a candidate. It is a lot different. And, for some people, you've just, you don't have to go crazy about it, but you can't be just completely compatible with the other candidates. You've got to stand
be
for
some
something
distinction.
different.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to ask you when we come back from this piece about social media, because we talked about that in the debate
Right.
earlier. We've talked about that with candidates. It wasn't there, a component when you were running for mayor.
Back talk.
Yeah.
There was social media. It was really social, one-on-one, or
Right.
within a small group of friends. Right?
It was rumor, it was gossip, it was, hey, this one, kind of thing. But now it's all plastered all over, regardless from how, even fake accounts, ghosting people. But first I want to move our attention now to the south end. We interviewed Warden Shirley McHugh from Precinct 3C at Cuss Middle School on Globe Mills Avenue this morning. Shirley said she is hoping for a great turnout citywide.
You expect a pretty good turnout today. How come?
No, I just want to see if they have
The weather is with us, and I think from all the exposure and all the media attention to this specific, not only in Fall River but nationwide, that this is a historic, and to be part of it is quite interesting.
You mentioned, too, you want to see more people, even more people get involved in the process of politics and democracy here in the city. What are your ideas to do that?
Well, the idea to do that is to get the younger people involved, to encourage their parents and their grandparents, because as you get older, you get into a routine, and it's like, well, I'll do that tomorrow, or it's raining. But if you had the young people, like I see in high school, to really get them into it, that would be, in my opinion, a really great thing the kids would say, get out there or take them, you know?
Sounds like a good idea to me, like it could be effective. So we're only about 2.5, 3 hours into the voting here in Fall River so far. What have you seen?
Well, I've seen a trickle, just like we have, I think, 100 and maybe 25 now. It's a steady trickle, but come like when lunchtime comes by, like between 12 and 1 and 4 and 7, 5 and 7, I really believe you will see people coming in, because like I say, it's an historical day. It's like, and this will determine what's going to happen for September and November. Like, this is just another chapter in this whole saga.
And thank you so much to Shirley. I'll tell you, cooperative wardens and folks at the polls make our jobs so much easier.
Absolutely.
So on December 12th, the recall group was able to secure 4,000 signatures on that petition asking for a recall. Mayor Correa did at the time, however, say that some of those signatures were invalid. And I actually, went on social media and asked folks to kind of look at those signatures and find any that might be fake. Boy, that was something we never saw when you were running for mayor. This whole social media platform, a lot of it really just brouhaha, false accusations that can get really nasty and spread very quickly.
Yeah, it's not just politics, it's the whole lifestyle. It's such a big gap. I think I can speak for all of us. We're a bit on the other side of it, in the sense of you're not brought up with it. It seems younger people have adjusted to it. They almost have different parameters of privacy and expectation. It's just hard for someone who was brought up without it. And now, I talk to candidates that where they go, people might have pictures of them, when they're out and about.
Right.
And you've just got to be very careful and, just a little more secretive, I guess, in some ways about what you do. And probably spend more time in the home than you used to.
I mean, for the paparazzi in Fall River, right? Who'd have thought they'd see it? But on December 26th, we also remember that our Mayor Correa called a press conference and said, quote, that he will not resign. He's going to fight this off to the end. Keith, we wanted to ask this mayor about the city charter, right? I mean, I know we went over a year working on the city charter, and I had done numerous interviews with Mike Mioza and talking about what the city charter would entail, how could we write it so that people would understand the vote. We did public service announcements, meeting after meeting with the neighborhood groups. So what is the confusion if indeed someone should vote a yes when someone else comes in on this ballot?
Well, we actually saw that over 4 years ago with Mayor Flanagan, Mayor Mitchell, where there was the first concern as to whether Mayor Flanagan could actually be on the ballot to run again.
Yeah.
And apparently the charter wasn't specific about that, so that's why he was allowed to be on the ballot.
Because they went to court over that.
They went to court. Now, what didn't happen over 4 years ago was Mayor Flanagan was recalled and also didn't win the election. So I guess the question I would have was, if Mayor Correa is recalled tonight but wins the election, there's a provision in the charter that says if you're recalled, you cannot be appointed for 2 years. Could that election be challenged?
I assume someone could challenge it on that language. Whether or not a judge would, intervene in it and do it that quickly. Because remember, you got another election in September. So.
Correct.
But we asked about appointed versus elected.
Yeah, the language is appointed.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's sort of strange.
Yeah, that is. It's not.
Because I think of appointments as someone getting appointed to a position here in Government Center.
And
or
even the city council president, if someone was serving as that's not really an appointment to mayor. So I don't know how you would get appointed.
Right.
But
I was handed some more results. I don't know if the other.
I had
section-
4C. That was
4C.
the
That
only
is
other
the one that's
there.
here. Okay.
Yeah.
So why don't you read it, Mayor, if you have it?
Yeah, I had Mayor Correa with 100. Well, first of all, the recall did pass, and Mayor Correa had 107 votes. Councilor Camara 80, Paul Coogan 63, and Ms. Scott 44, excuse me, and Kyle Riley 41.
Right.
It passed 189 and 115. So again, the turnout was 476 in 4C.
Right.
4 years ago, it was about 350 roughly with blanks this time. So it's down, a bit. Yeah, probably more in the high 20s or so.
I mean, what does that mean? That more people came out 4 years ago to recall Will Flanagan that are coming out now. I mean, we talk over and over about this voter apathy problem, right? Even talking with the wardens today,
Right.
just want to see folks come in. What is that all about?
Part of it could be that was the first recall and there was something. I do think you get a sense around the city of why was there a recall. I don't think so much excusing what went on as there's an election in September. And, you know, it's so close. It's March. It's 5 months later. I mean, what's going to happen after tonight is this will end and then the September election
Yeah.
will begin.
Well, I think it's the end of
Probably-
April when nomination papers are available,
Yeah.
I believe. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
so
See that?
the campaign will
month and a
begin
half, we start again.
probably Thursday morning. And depending on the results, I mean, talk about a pretty well-developed poll. I mean, whoever's running tonight is going to
Absolutely.
have certainly better than any poll anyone could afford. And it'll give you an idea of where you stand.
And one of the things that'll be important to see tonight, if the mayor is recalled, but wins the election, whoever is second, I would think, would have a very good opportunity in September, November, in that it'll be one-on-one in November.
Yeah.
It won't be split 5 ways.
Yeah.
So if the recall is successful, you would think logic would be that whoever the mayor would face, if he were to run again in November of 2019, would be a very formidable challenge.
Oh, yeah, you would think. And again, you don't know how many people will be in the primary of this
Could
group
be
or
people
any
who-
other group.
Right, there could be other people
And
who may
then,
run.
but the big thing will be after the primary shakes out.
Right.
And a lot will happen between now and then. I mean, you don't know what will happen in Boston with the case,
Correct.
and then you don't know what will happen locally. Economy's been good. And, you know, there's been some good news in the city. And that certainly, you know, I think has affected tonight to a great deal.
Right.
What candidate do you think did the best job getting their message out? And the messages were kind of different, you know? Some
Yeah.
talked education and housing. That was Erica Scott Pacheco. You know, others talked crime.
Right.
Others talked the opiate problems, housing. So, Erica Scott Pacheco, excuse me, I stand corrected. And she did say, too, at the debate that we hosted, Keith, that she would run again.
She's already
Definitely.
mentioned that she's
said
going to
her
run.
Yeah, she's been clear that
Yeah.
she's in, and I think Paul Coogan's been clear on that.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I think even Kyle Riley has
Yeah.
said that he's in
Yeah.
it for the long term, that he was going to run regardless of a recall. He was
Yeah.
going to run in November. So we'll see.
So, I mean, that can help you or hurt you, right? It's showing dedication, but at the same time, is it also showing maybe a little bit of doubt, a little bit of questioning in your mind that I will come back if I should fail here on this recall on March 12th. But with the 2 precincts, and even the results from those 2 precincts are fairly different right now.
Yeah, it's, I mean, what's clear is, you know, the recall has passed, not by as large a margin. Last time I think it was 10,000 to 4,000.
Yeah, 10,600 to 4,600. Yeah.
So it was a, you know, big spread. It doesn't seem that it's going to be nearly that this time. And again, I think some of it's just this idea of an election's coming up. We've done this once. The charter really has lowered the number of signatures needed for a recall. And whoever gets elected in any election, I would think the next day there's enough people out there to recall you. And, you know, I know the charter was just passed, but I think it's got to be rethought if it's going to continue a pattern like this. So.
Well, I did talk today, too, with our election commissioner about absentee ballots. There's a special formula for that. You apply to the office, whether you're serving in the military or for whatever reason you might be out of town, fill out the form, deliver it back to election office, then you're mailed a ballot vote, confirmation you receive it. They're stored at the election office and locked up until this morning. Then it's the police officers that pick up those ballots and deliver them to the polling places. So it was interesting for me today at Spencer Borden to see the absentee ballots still going in, you know, as the folks were coming in and voting. Spencer Borden was fairly busy, but I have to say, as I was out, and I was out early this morning, not a lot of people on the sidewalks.
No,
Did you
no.
notice that too? Like, compared to, it was a nice day, I
Well,
thought.
I was going to say about the weather. You know, March, you never know. Last year we had a very stormy March. We had a stormy
Yes.
March two weeks ago, a week and a half ago. But, I mean, I think there's been worse weather on a November election than what we had
Oh, yeah,
here
no,
today.
today was a nice
Yeah.
It
day.
was a pretty nice day.
I think part of it goes to what you talked about social media. I think there's more contact with voters you might know or identify as supporting you. And I think there's more, whether it's texting, you know, Facebook, whatever it might be, Instagram, direct email. And I also think there's more emphasis now on checking votes. I think there's more people inside the polling places for different candidates, seeing who voted and going out trying to get them to the polls. So I think the emphasis on sign holding in that is less than it once was.
Yeah, I missed that. I did miss that today. You see the hearty souls out there with umbrellas or the coffee, and then someone else would drive up with the coffee and sandwich runs, which we reporters never said no to, coffee and the sandwich runs.
Some were better than
I
others.
remember, Mayor Mitchell fed us a few times, and that was okay.
Leo always had a good one.
Leo had his truck come
Well, he
out.
sort of had a, you
Had an
know,
advantage.
a little advantage there.
Yeah. But 11 candidates did pull out their nomination papers before the January 17th deadline. So if you think 5 candidates is a big category, we had double that in one.
Well, and actually, you know, 4 years ago, the previous recall, there were 8 candidates on the ballot.
Yeah.
There are 5 here. I mean, I think these are 5 very strong candidates. And, you know, there were some strong candidates, you know, 4 years ago. Of course, you had Mayor Sutter. He wasn't mayor at the time. He won that recall election. You had Mayor Flanagan. You had Sean Kadim, who ran. He always does well in city council and school committee races. Mike Mioza, city councilor. Dave Dennis, former city councilor. So you had, you know, those top 5 were very strong back then, and we did see the mayor get recalled and also lose the election. So a lot of people talking about how the vote is split. It was equally split 4 years ago. So it'll be interesting to see whether it manifests itself this time. Again, different electorate, different people coming to the polls as we now look at Election Central downstairs. Pretty quiet right now, as normally that will get a lot busier when the computer packs come in from the voting machines from the different precincts. And again, we will report the numbers once they come in. And again, we do have cameras out with the candidates this evening. We hope to hear from the mayor live and maybe even Paul Coogan live, as we do have a live image from that location as well. That's Barrett's Waterfront. We have our camera high above courtside, if you will, up on the balcony there, where the mayor addressed his voters a couple of years ago. And so we'll be looking at them pretty soon. And it's tough to tell. The turnout there still looks rather light.
Well, we
in
talked
terms of the
about
people
that
there.
earlier, Keith, right? About 7:30, 7:45. We said a lot of people, and again, harping back, you know, to the olden days when more people seemed to hang out at the election headquarters, listen to the radio, watch the television, and find out. But again, it's that social media component that
different way of
folks
socializing.
kind of know.
Yeah.
I heard that we have 5 precincts in, but I don't want to confirm that. 'Cause
Yeah, I
I'm
have
recognizing some of these numbers.
I don't.
Do you,
I don't know where it's from. I don't want to repeat
That's
them
what I'm
until,
saying. We're getting just, and that's
basis.
okay. We
Yeah.
like the information and we like the, you know, audience participation, shall we call it, Keith? But we want to confirm some of those numbers. I wanted to talk to a little bit about some of the issues that really touched on and what impressed me. Erica Scott Pacheco talked about brain drain, right? Joe Camara talked an awful lot about trust. And it was
And his experience.
23 years on the city council. And I noticed during our debate too, Keith, as Joe Camara was very visibly nodding as Paul Coogan's closing statements, when Coogan asked the audience, does anyone else have this experience? Can anyone else lead this city? And Joe Camara was visibly, yes, like, hello.
Right.
You've got
I've
4
been here
other,
23 years.
you
I
know,
know.
4 other guys here who can, and a woman, who can help you out and do a good job just as well. So I thought that was really interesting. The mayor, of course, continued talking about the many things that he plans to increase the police officers to 240 next year. He promised he would not keep vendettas against anyone who worked to recall him or the other 4 candidates. He said if you look at facts versus results, he did a lot. He eliminated the purple bags, and he eliminated the $120 trash fee. Mr. Coogan talked a lot about leadership, having someone you can trust, stopping the division in the city. Kyle Riley, again, gentleman I've known for a long time, on the school committee from 97 to 2000, talked a lot about his work with young people. He was a city councilor from 2001 to 2002. Talked about education, raising his children here, has gone on a couple of police drive-throughs and driven with the police at night, talked about their feedback. All of the police officers he talked to said they need more police walking the city beat. And Erica Scott Pacheco, I want to make a note that out of Dayton Rehoboth High School, she's a graduate, the first DR student to go and complete Harvard.
Harvard education.
I mean, that's
impressive.
she put her numbers together. I was very impressed having met Erica only, I guess, 3 years ago maybe.
Right.
But she's worked many years in management, and I felt that she just did a wonderful job being a female candidate up there and held her own. And I think we'll be seeing more of her in the future.
Mayor, let me ask you, a lot of this election for the 5 candidates, well, actually the 4 candidates really, they have to differentiate themselves in terms of what they can do for the city. The mayor has his record. But without mentioning the recall, this is a different election in that without the recall being successful, all that is really moot. So how difficult, I know you didn't have to experience this, but if you were to experience, how difficult would it have been for you to say, I've got to mention that why we're here. And the reason why we're here is because there's a recall of a sitting mayor, but then you also have to share your vision for the city.
Yeah, and it came up I heard for full one debate and portion of others. It did come up in closings, and some
Right.
people worked it in. I mean, it obviously works into the issue of economic development, people approaching the city, what other elected officials said, the governor, the lieutenant governor, the congressman. So it was worked in those regards. But no, I don't think it's something people generally know what the reason is for the recall.
Sure.
And I still think in any mayoral election, you got to convince people that you can run the city, and you're not going to do about it strictly negative. You've got to show you have some capacity and some vision for the city.
Right. The recallers in their petition stated that they feel that the mayor could not effectively run the city as mayor while he's facing the federal charges. As we know, the governor asked for the mayor to resign, congressman asked the mayor to resign, other people had asked the mayor to resign. There has been talk that perception of the city outside of the borders are negative. You're in a county position, you work with a number of other people who are also local politicians, not in Fall River. What are you hearing about the perception of Fall River outside of the city?
I think it's more not just Mayor Carrera, what's happened to him. I think there's just a sense, we've had a lot of mayors recently. There's been, a good amount of turnover. You've got 2 recalls. And I think you see it. There hasn't been the same stability. I mean, you look at New Bedford, where they've had a series of 3-term mayors, and now I believe Mayor Mitchell's on his 4th term. So you've had that stability. And, I think it does show in certain things that go on in New Bedford. Everything from certain civic events they have, the way things occur there, to what you've seen with their downtown. And it's not all the issue of stability, but it helps. And now, meantime, in Fall River, you've had a lot of turnover. And not just because the mayor came in and got defeated, but the recalls have certainly caused not only the turnover, but I think it's created a perception of what goes on there. How are these things happening? So
I think people are looking for some solid leadership, and really, as we heard in the debates, every candidate lined up and said why they can deliver that solid leadership. And I know people want that in the city. And you mentioned earlier that, everybody has the best interest of the city. I just like to believe that. I'll be naive or what, but I think for what you do, like you've said, it's a 24/7 job. And I'm making a whole heck of a lot of money.
Yeah, no,
You're at
well-
you see these candidates and you see the mayors, all the mayors that I've worked with at the Little League games, the coffee hours at night, going to the neighborhood groups, riding along with the police officers. We even had one mayor who rode along on a trash truck for a while to get a perception of how that job was.
and don't forget the snowstorms.
The snowstorms, always the snowstorms.
Always the snowstorms. I mean,
First one was always fun. The
I'd
8th
say-
or 9th got a little long.
Remember Ron Costa?
He did a great job.
He was a great guy.
Wonderful guy.
We'd be down at the salt shed. The
Yep.
first flake would fall, and we'd run down there to see if we had enough salt ready for the rest. But
There were years we didn't.
there were years we didn't, and we were borrowing. That was the one budget item, if I'm correct, that you can go over on.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You go over on because
Yeah.
who can predict the snow? But so I think that we've seen. I mean, that was when. Look at how long Carlton Viveris was in, a long time, and he ended up resigning. It's a little easier to see a mayor go out on their own term, right?
Yeah.
Than a recall. just seems to sting a little
Well,
less for the people.
It was funny when the mayor and I were doing this type of coverage years ago. I was always interested in the history of elections, and I think I had to go back.
I asked the question at the debate about school absenteeism. We're up the top in sometimes the number 2, sometimes the number 3 spot between the highest percentage of kids that regardless as chronically absent here in the state. That to me is just a huge problem. I want to know more about what we're going to do to engage the parents, get these kids in school. It's tough when it's a second grader getting themselves out of bed, and but it's a fact of life in an inner city that this happens a lot of times, that these kids go to school. We have breakfast, we have lunch, we have summer programs to feed these kids. It's very unique being in a city of this size with these kind of problems that I think some of our communities that we're surrounded by don't get to see.
Right.
So it's definitely a challenge. And the brain drain we talked about as well during the debates. The city is ranked number 1, according to Erica Scott Pacheco, with a town in Arizona for this brain drain, for folks who graduate our local colleges, which are wonderful, wonderful local colleges, and then head out of state and out to other parts of the country or the world even, to earn their money and raise their family. So that's a problem too. Never mind stability in the mayor's office, but we want to stop that transient population that seems to come and go every year as well.
Well, I know as Mayor Mitchell, you know, you had to look at job creation, right? That's the big,
that's
big part.
always the
That's
big
always
issue.
one of the big issues.
Education.
And you know, when you've got students here who do well educationally, sometimes the jobs are not here for their skill set. So that's why they happen to move on. And that's something that every mayor, since you, before you, after
it's
you,
been
going forward, is
since
going
the
to be an
20s.
issue. Right.
I just want to say, we were talking about social media and its promptness. I just want to correct, I did get a text from a member of the Charter Commission stating they adopted the special act and they didn't change the percentage of votes or the time to file a petition. So it is
Right.
similar to
Still
16.
5%.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and I still think 5% is a very low number.
Right. Well,
Having
that's
been a
something
mayor.
maybe the Charter Commission will look at when they get back
But
together.
it's just, and it's not faulting them. It's
No, no,
just,
no.
And it's a special act. But it is. It's, you know, there's 5% out there that don't like you
Right.
from the day of your birth.
Did
Wow.
you think we needed a new charter? I mean,
Yeah,
if you
I
look
did.
at it,
I thought
what
it was
was
in-
it, 100 years old?
Yeah, I thought we needed
Yeah.
it. It cleared up a lot of things, and they did a lot of good corrections in it, and they did a great process as
Yeah.
far as going around the city, having hearings, getting input, and some of them were well attended. And it's, you talk about public spiritedness. There's a somewhat thankless job that
That
the
was a-
commission did a very
yes.
good job on, and they worked hard on it. So.
Well, my late coworker Phil Sabatino would go along to all the neighborhood groups
Right.
and set up so that folks could stand up to the microphone
Yeah.
and ask
All
these
right.
questions on the speakers, and Phil would go to these neighborhood groups, and they were well attended. And many of the folks that were writing the charter were at those meetings to answer the
Yeah.
questions. So, Keith, you have the document, and
Right,
you
I
can
still-
see that it's
I've been reading, you know, Section 8 quite often over the
Yeah.
past few weeks here. But, you know, one of the things that's important, we're still waiting, of course, for the first unofficial results to come in. We do have 2 precincts we mentioned here that are posted here. You can see a lot more people now downstairs as some of those packets come in. All of us have been getting text messages from people with some numbers. We are not going to report numbers until we get them from Election Central. I think it would be a little premature to do some of that. So we will not be announcing numbers until we get some numbers from the results coming in from the precincts. So, but we, you know, we are getting some numbers from some people who know us, and we appreciate it. We appreciate the heads up, but we're looking at making sure that we get the numbers directly from downstairs.
Looks like
and
maybe some
and
are
I
coming
think
up,
right on
right?
cue,
here comes Renee
here comes
Couchman.
Renee, delivery boy, with the numbers. And we will go through this, and I will read them. We will have them on the screen momentarily. We have 8 precincts in, I believe. I'm sorry. We have 8 precincts out of 29 in, and as of the 8 precincts, in terms of the recall of Mayor Correa, in favor of the recall, 1,797 votes to against 1,462, 55 to 44% in favor of recalling Mayor Correa. And as we look at the bottom half of the ballot, quickly looking at the numbers for the candidates for mayor, Mayor Correa on top, 1,471 votes, Paul Coogan in second, 1,064, followed by Joe Camara with 413, then Kyle Riley, 352, Erica Scott Pacheco, 158. Again, unofficial numbers, you can see the recall numbers right now on the screen. For the recall, 1,797. Against the recall, 1,462. 8 precincts out of 29 in thus far. So those are the first results we can report with some certainty.
Okay. So again, it's confusing if you look at the top versus the bottom votes with the mayor.
Well, I mean, when
Yeah.
you look at, it's actually pretty close, Pam. When you look
Yeah.
at the those voting
9-vote
no,
difference.
Yeah.
yeah, right. Those voting no for the against the recall are coming out for the mayor, and apparently there were 9 votes that
People-
voted, maybe 4 who also voted for the mayor. So you can see the numbers right now for the candidates for mayor. Right now, very clearly, it's going to come between Mayor Correa and Paul Coogan, with Joe Camara 3rd, Kyle Riley 4th, and Erica Scott Pacheco 5th.
So if we look at that now, let's look at the generation gap, right? One gentleman's old enough to be the other gentleman's grandfather, technically. And they touched on that. Paul Coogan, during the debate, talked a lot about experience. He talked about trust. He talked about the leader setting the tone in the city. He made reference that this is a young man who may not understand how you build teams. He even said, quote, a dark cloud will leave when the mayor is gone. So he was running more on this trustworthy figure, having worked at Durfee High School, knowing a lot of folks in the school department. And we had Mayor Correa, who touted his experience and the things he's done as a younger man in office. So I found that split very interesting to see during the debates. And we encourage folks to watch these debates. And even in the audience, it was a good turnout, Keith.
It was a very good turnout.
At
that
Morton.
night, yeah.
Folks enjoy that because you're really hearing up close and personal with the candidates, as well as reading the Herald News. We do these debates in conjunction with the Fall River Herald newspaper. Been around even longer than us, the newspaper. So they do a great job too, and letting people know these candidates and what they stand for. So I felt that folks were definitely well informed, maybe reluctantly, right? Like you said, another recall. Here we go again. But I think they were well informed, and I think the candidates did a good job standing on their platforms. Do you feel that way?
They did. What's happened with social media, though, is the message is so diffuse now.
Yeah.
There's so many, the papers circulation is way down.
Right.
Radio is probably in some ways even more prominent with certain segment, more elderly people. And then you've just got this great wide world of social media with all kind of different media, and most of it for a local election of this size. I mean, the Herald News is online. There's some somewhat credible sources, and then a lot of Wild West out there that, things are thrown about. And I think that makes it harder to focus on a message, particularly on an election like this, where it was really the last 10 days, 2 weeks, where there was a lot of attention on what the candidates were saying, apart from them trying to generate it. But
and also it's with social media is that it is so diverse in many ways, and it may be difficult for a lot of people to understand who's telling them the truth.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yeah,
and that's the biggest
incredible problem with that.
That's the credibility gap. And, a lot of people will look at the work that we do, that we've done for over 20 plus years, and of course the Herald News being, the established media entity here in Fall River. There's some cachet that goes along with that. But there are others out there that are trying to make a name for themselves online, in media, and there are some people who may not know whether what they're saying is something that they should take credibly. And then they start looking at the Herald News and what we do and say, well, are they credible now? Because I'm getting information
The
from
whole
these
issue
other
with
sources.
fake news.
Yep.
I mean, it's what's happened is, what institutions remain credible anymore? Look at the college admission scandal today.
Right?
Oh, my
I mean,
goodness.
that's just incredible.
Right.
I mean, one thing I think younger people banked on is, I take this exam and there's a certain worth to it and it can't be tampered with. But, that case has all kind of evidence of proctors taking the exam for certain students, changing, these college entrance exams, grades being changed on them, which you'd always been told. And I just think, it's sending a terrible message to younger people, especially when, you know, you've got a president attacking the Department of Justice, you got a Congress from day one attacking the president. It's just, there's no institution that's particularly revered anymore.
I mean, working at Durfee High School, I see it. Keith, you must do too, even at the college level at BCC. The number of students I ask, and we hold voter registrations right at Durfee to try to get these students engaged and involved. I think that was one thing that I do think Mayor Correa did. When he was elected, he had a young group with him. They were, a part of the group was here at Election Central, at Government Center, but he had people that really believed in his message. He was the youngest mayor elected. Prior to that, it was Will Flanagan, who then was recalled, but to be elected at 23 was impressive. The first mayor of Cape Verdean descent as well here in Fall River. So I think he brought a lot of firsts, and now looking like he's going to stay in office? I don't know.
It's too close to call
Still
right
close to
now.
call still. It's still,
We're not sure where these
there's
precincts
still 21
are from.
precincts
Yeah.
still out there. Again, we do not know where, as the mayor said, where the other precincts are, but as you can see, as of right now, with the recall being successful, this is our current rundown of the candidates running for mayor. Mayor Correa on top with 1,471 votes, Paul Coogan with 1,064 votes, followed by, we got more coming through right here, right now, so we can get the updated numbers right now. So why don't I just read them as we get them inputted. We now have 16 of the 29 precincts reporting. In the ballot question in terms of the recall, in favor of the recall, 3,231 votes, 57%. Against the recall, 2,373 votes, 42%. In the race for mayor, Mayor Correa widening his lead, 2,393 votes. Paul Coogan, 1,884 votes. Joe Camara in third, 794 votes. Kyle Riley, 623. Erica Scott Pacheco, 290. You can see right now, those are the recall numbers. That's the first question on the ballot. That will drive the entire rest of the evening. Right now, the for recall is about 900 votes or so ahead of those voting no on the recall. That is trending with 13 precincts left, Mayor. That's 57-42. That may be a pretty solid number. That
Yeah,
we'll see
I'm
going forward.
looking, it went from 55-44 to 57-42 with, you know, twice as many precincts and a little less than twice as many votes. So, yeah, I think, you know, the trend is there. And, you know, the mayor just pulled ahead a little bit more by about 500 votes.
And again,
so,
something extremely interesting is the votes against the recall, 2,373 votes. The mayor's numbers, 2,393, 20 more votes
then,
that have voted for
Yeah.
him on the second half than voted against the recall.
yeah,
So, very interesting to see.
yeah.
Yeah. We're going to try to get former Mayor Will Flanagan here as well. He said he'd come on and answer
he's-
some questions.
He's currently working at WSAR, so they're
Right.
taking a little break here, so maybe we can get him in for,
Is he double dipping tonight?
I don't know.
Well, we pay in pizza and donuts, so
I'm hired.
that's
Mayor,
what
welcome.
we pay the students at Durfee High School. Mayor
Mayor,
Flanagan, thanks
Keith,
for coming on.
great coverage, great job.
see you,
tonight.
Mayor.
I think you're getting more numbers in, and from what I'm hearing in the field, Jazel Career may get reelected tonight on the bottom of the ballot.
With the recall.
He's going to possibly get recalled.
Called
Very
and
too close to call
elected.
right now.
Yeah.
However, Jazel Career may best Paul Coogan by 100 or so votes. Right now, I'm waiting for one more precinct to come in, but I believe Coogan's trailing by about 200 votes with 5C waiting to be reported.
Mayor still has his troops out.
He's
in the
still got
field.
his people reporting.
Still got my finger on the pulse.
We have to talk about that because
Yes.
there was rumors swirling. You even held a press conference saying you would not be running in this recall election.
Yes.
Are you going to run again?
No, my focus right now is on my personal life and my law practice and all the great things I've been able to focus on and build up over the years that I've been out of office. I still enjoy being here. I enjoy being with all of you, and I'm still fascinated by politics. So nowhere else but Fall River can a mayor be recalled and then elected on the bottom of the ballot. We're going to make international news tonight.
Well, let me ask you, Mayor, 4 years ago, you went through this.
I did.
And what was your feeling that night when you started seeing these numbers that one, you were going to be recalled, and but
Yes.
two, you also were not going to be successful on the bottom.
Well, the recall 4 years ago was really based on policy. It was a policy recall election. This is really focused on the mayor's 13-count federal indictment. Different time, different place. 4 years ago, you saw close to 35% of the electorate come out to vote. If it was a low turnout, I was going to get reelected. Sutter bested me by about 1,200 votes or so. So when we saw the votes, it is what it was. It was an election. You win them, you lose them. Now we're 4 years later, and Jazel Correa is going through it. He may hold on, though. But it's going to be interesting because if he does win, will he be able to win again in September in a one-on-one? Maybe not. Maybe not.
Well, I think we talked about it earlier. If right now 42% the recall, yes over no, you would think that if logic, if you put logic into it, that in November when Mayor Correa could be one-on-one with another candidate,
Yes.
that you would think that 57% may play a
we
role
have some
somehow.
new
We
numbers
get some more
coming
numbers
in.
coming in. So why don't you comment on that, Mayor? If you could?
Yes. Well, on a one-on-one, it may be very difficult for Jazel to win, but who's that one-on-one?
Correct.
If it's just Jazel and Paul Coogan tonight, Paul Coogan probably is going to win. But when you have four other candidates running, the edge is to Jazel. I'll let you folks continue with your results.
Mayor.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mayor. Good
Thank
to
you,
see you.
Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank
Going
you.
back to your day job.
All right, we do have some new numbers. We have 22 now of the 29
Yep.
precincts in. And in the recall question, for the recall, 4,569 votes. Against the recall, 3,448, about 1,100 votes there difference. Now looking at the candidates running for mayor, again, Mayor Correa on top, 3,448 votes. Paul Coogan in second, about 900 votes behind, 2,588. Joe Camara, strong third, 1,169. Kyle Riley, 895. Erica Scott Pacheco, 452. And right now, interestingly enough, the against the recall number and the number of votes the mayor has, right on, exact.
Exactly.
Look at that.
3,448
So-
votes.
Look at that.
It evened off.
It evened off. So the mayor, we are waiting to hear from the mayor over at Barrett. Evan Masuda is down there with a camera at another location. And he's saying that Jazel's not there yet.
Right. Mayor Mitchell, let me ask you this. The outcome, there's 7 precincts left. Looks pretty strong. It's 57 to 43 for the recall. If you're Mayor Correa, this holds out. The electorate tells you that we don't want you, but you're still in on the bottom. How do you come to grips with that when you have to, in effect, say you won tonight?
Well, you claim victory and you go to work tomorrow and you keep doing things for the city. Obviously there's a big factor out of his control, what happens in Boston, how that goes. I don't expect it would be resolved, by September or November. So, he's got to make that decision. Is he going to run again in the fall? I would expect he would after going through this, and he's been insistent on his innocence and on, completing his term.
Here we go.
So,
This could be the end. 29 of 29.
yeah.
All right, this is the final unofficial tally. 29 of 29 precincts. Mayor Jazel Correa has been recalled tonight by the electorate here in Fall River. 7,829 votes to 4,911 votes. Now the candidates for mayor. Mayor Correa has been reelected in the race for mayor. 4,808 votes. Paul Coogan, extremely close. 4,567 votes. Joseph Camara in third, 1,971. Kyle Riley, 1,460. Erica Scott Pacheco, 740. The difference is under 300 votes, Mayor.
Wow. Yep.
241 votes. That's
Recount?
very close. I don't know that,
It's too much, you think?
It's a lot. I guess it depends how many ballots are out there, absentees and others to be counted, or if there are any provisional. And then, it's certainly, I guess, within the range of doing it. But whether or not,
Paul Coogan.
if you're going to run in September, you ask for recall now and the further expense. But look, you're in that closer position. You've worked as hard as Paul, ran a very good campaign. He did things, put, financially some of his own money in it to start. Remember, this is a gentleman who moved from Somerset to Fall River basically to get involved in public life, to run for school committee, and now for mayor. So he's got a very strong commitment. I've known Paul for years, very competitive, good athlete in a range of sports, and I'm sure he's looking at it. And it's just something you've got to weigh strategically. Do you cause some resentment by looking for a recall, particularly where right now you're 5 months away from a primary?
And also, we'll go back to the question we brought up earlier. The charter states that if you're recalled, you cannot be appointed to a position for 2 years. Is that potentially on the table?
Could be.
Maybe we'll hear from Mr. Coogan tonight,
yeah,
and maybe
but
he'll...
And, you could go in and perhaps get a quick order on that, but I'd be surprised if any judge would do much with a September primary by the time you get to court. But who knows? It's a personality of a judge. Would they get involved in something like that? And then there's the whole question of interpretation.
Correct.
But, yeah, it seems like there's some avenues there. But the mayor, to his credit, I know he's older now, but he's still
but he's
still
wiser.
younger than any other.
He does
No,
talk
but I
about
just
that
mean
a lot during press conferences.
He does say
is,
that, right.
But my point is, he's just an extremely adept candidate. He really is, for any age. He has been since he first ran. He's got a great political instinct, a great sense. And Paul showed tonight that he does. And the other candidates, it's a tough breakdown. Paul, Kyle, and Joe, are all identified with the North End, and they split the vote there.
We see now this is at Scotty's.
Yep.
This is at Scotty's Pub, where Paul Coogan will be there shortly, I believe. He's there now.
He's there now, and he'll be addressing the group and supporters there. Do we hear him yet?
And it'll be interesting to see again what he does say to his supporters.
Mayor Mitchell, how important is it to receive endorsements, say from the teachers union, the firefighters, the police? How important are those
I think
endorsements?
unions are more important than individual endorsements. I never know how much individuals help or hurt. I mean, particularly political figures, because they always carry, the most popular political figure has people against them. Unions endorsements are great if they're there with money and people who go out and help. I mean, they help perception-wise, but what you really want from them is, the material. You want some money, people who go out and help you, maybe people who go out and speak on your behalf, and that. So that is helpful. Personal endorsements, I've always, I've never known, they cut both ways. I think they help more from maybe Tom Brady.
That's right. I just want to bring up some other, we're looking at the numbers. We talked about how in the recall 4 years ago. Let's go to Paul Coogan, who's speaking now to his supporters. Oh, that's the mayor.
That's the mayor.
That's the mayor.
Mayor just entering the Barrett's waterfront right now. We have our camera high above. Let's just... A lot of high fives to the mayor as he's walking through the crowd. But again, it is still a mixed message for the mayor, as he was recalled tonight, but did win re-election for mayor on the bottom half of that ballot.
And that Barrett's waterfront, boy, did that fill up quickly, huh?
Exactly. We saw it earlier. It was pretty barren.
It was barren about, even until 8:20. So yes, these folks were out at the polls, working the polls right till the last minute, and now just a cluster of people that turned out at Barrett's. Really jubilant crowd, and the mayor looks absolutely thrilled. Boy, and Dave Souza getting some pictures for the Herald News.
Right.
So this will be, how far away are they going to be talking about this, Mayor Mitchell?
A
It's
long way. I
state-
think Mayor Flanagan was correct. It'll be interesting, the Boston and Providence coverage, because it's more immediate and they know here. But, when it broke, it was covered in national and international sources. So I think it will have some. How the tone will be, it'll be momentary. It'll pass.
Like everything, right?
The bigger question for the city is how does this all resolve over a year or two? And
Well, and one of the questions, the last question that was asked at the debate at Morton was, regardless of the outcome, how do you, as a candidate or a mayor, try to unify this city? It's been torn for quite a while.
Yeah.
Some will say since the last recall that there's been a lot of division. And how do you unify the city? I think there may be more questions to that question
yeah,
than answers.
assume Paul's speech tonight will probably include a announcement that he's running in September.
Right.
And I don't know about anyone else in that field, but certainly, you know, I said, I think earlier, the next campaign would give Thursday morning. It probably begins in about 10 minutes.
Probably about
so.
10 minutes for some of the, you know, just again, as I was speaking before the mayor came into Barrett's, looking at the numbers, 4 years ago there were over 17,000 ballots cast. The ballots cast total tonight, 13,758. Don't know the percentage quite yet, but definitely a lot lower than 4 years ago.
Yeah, that's roughly about, I think there's a little less than 50,000 voters in the city,
Right.
so it's probably 27, 29, somewhere in there. So it's off by almost 10 percentage points.
Right. So we are waiting to hear from both Mayor Correa and Paul Coogan. The mayor making his way. We have our camera perched up on that platform, and that's where the mayor had given his speech a few years ago. And I believe that is Paul Coogan we see now at Scotty's, shaking some hands as he enters the pub there on Pleasant Street, not too far from Government Center. We hope to hear from both candidates. We will hopefully be able to take both of them live, but we do definitely want to hear from the mayor tonight, as he is the incumbent. Again, if you're just joining us, Mayor Jairzinho Correa was recalled tonight in the special election. However, he did get the most votes in the race for mayor, so in effect, he will come back to Government Center tomorrow morning as the mayor of the city of Fall River.
I just want to run down to some of his platform that he spoke about during the debates. He says he's the only mayor in the state to get rid of fees. He says every other candidate is talking about things his administration has done or started, whether it's the new police officers, building new schools. He says the other candidates have no platform. Says he's fulfilled his promises of ending pay-as-you-throw, as well as eliminating that $120 trash fee. He says he will increase the police force by 20%. And there we go.
And the mayor is now up on the platform above Barrett's, and we will turn it over now to Barrett's and hopefully hear from the mayor.
How we feeling? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. All right. This is supposed to be on too, this one? Okay. First and foremost, I know I usually end with this, but I'm going to start with it. Hey, can I get a water? Praise God. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, God. Amen. I'm losing my voice because of you. Thank you. Thank you to my family, my mom, my dad, my sister, my grandmother. Thank you. Without family, you're nothing. You can't do anything. And these people right here, my family that's out there as well. They are just unbelievable people. Thank you. God bless them. Thank you. Okay. Everybody in this room, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. This is something else. This is something else. I am honestly overwhelmed, and everybody in the room knows I am usually not speechless, especially at the debates, but today I am speechless. Just thank you to the team, the staff at City Hall, the City Hall employees. Thank you, guys. I love you. Thank you. Thank you to the campaign team. All of you. I mean, the list is endless. We can name every single person here. We were up till 4 a.m. doing drops last night, 4:30 in the morning doing drops. We were at church this morning. We were everywhere, every single person, all week, every single day, at all the senior high-rises, at the senior centers, on the campaign trail, at the door knocking, at the phone calls. We were everywhere. I couldn't have done this without all of you at home, all of you watching. Thank you so much. This is just, it's an honor to serve. It's an honor to serve. I'm losing my voice. It's an honor to serve the city of Fall River. I do need a water, honestly. It was a long fought battle, but we prevailed. And I can't thank you enough. We're going to be right at City Hall tomorrow to keep doing the people's business. Continued services, more police officers, more firefighters, less taxes and fees, more teachers, better roads, better economic development. It's because of you we won this election. We're going to win another one in November. We're going to another one 3 years from now. We're going to keep winning. We're going to keep winning. And we are going to make Fall River, Massachusetts, the best city in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Thank you. 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 Oh, I love all of you so much. I love them. My opponents, I love my opponents. I love each of them. I love every person in this community, every child, every veteran, every senior, every family, every single person in this community matters. I love you all. Thank you. And you're going to see great things continue to happen in our city. God bless each of you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Praise God. Have a good night. Let's celebrate.
Very jubilant and grateful and thankful Mayor Jesu Correa. And we will now hear from candidate Paul Cooper.
He addressed his voters as well tonight, his supporters at Scotty's. So let's hear from that if we can.
Okay. I just want you to know how tough it is when you lose something like this that you worked a long time for. Sorry. I just want you to know how tough it is to lose something like this when you work a long time and you think what you're trying to do is make the place where you live a better place to live. And I see all the people here that work so hard to help me. I don't even know if I'm worthy of it, but I really, really, really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. We tried. We made a good faith effort, and we slugged it out to the end, and we had a lot of fun, and I really appreciate it. I'm a little bit burnt out right now, so you have to bear with me. But we had a long day, and I see so many people's faces out there that I know bent over backwards for me, and I really have to thank them all. First of all, I got to thank my wife, Julie. She went through everything, and she stuck it out, and it was a real effort. I have to thank my second wife, Ann, who I think as the campaign went on more and more, she yelled at me more than my first wife. And then I had a great core crew of people that I do have to acknowledge that really listened to my ramblings all the time and stayed with me. My cousin Steve Long on the city council, Pam LeBeau on the city council, Kristen Garvin that belongs on the school committee, Melissa Panchley, who was on the school committee, Eric Tolley, that stayed with me through a bunch of nonsense with all the social media stuff. Mark Costa on the school committee. And those are the people that I counted on to write stuff and give me an idea where we are. I think Fall River, and I'll say it again, deserves better than we ended up tonight. But the voters decided to go a different way, so we're going to respect them because that's how the system works. I know they voted to recall the mayor, and then they vote, and he had enough votes with the amount of splitting to hang on by 300 votes. I tip my hat to him. Good job. But I am telling you right now, I'm a tad upset, and I'm looking at September and thinking of how we may be able to make that better. Tonight we acknowledge The mayor won. I tip my hat to him if I had one on. And I say we keep Fall River moving forward. And again, you will never know how much your efforts mean to me. I don't care if it was putting a sticker on your car, a sign in your yard, calling a friend, saying hello to somebody to try to pick up some support for me. It was because of people like you that I went out there trudging around like a lunatic every day. And I really can't thank you enough. I appreciate it, and it means more to me than most of the things I've ever had in my life. And I can't say enough. And that's enough of me talking. Thank you. Let's all have a beer and have a laugh. Thank you.
Candidate Paul Coogan tonight has to be somewhat pleased with his performance in terms of coming in a very strong second. And he already indicated that we'll see you in September, if you will, for the preliminary election.
I mean, he's 200 votes behind in a vote that split that widely. And, you know, the mayor fell under 40%. He was over it for a good part, just barely tonight.
Right.
And that's a big difference. But again, between them, they got 68% of the vote, so there's another third out there that
Go either
will
way.
be available.
Now, what if, Mayor, if you're some of the other three candidates, we had talked about that, you know, Erica Scott Pacheco said that she may come back, Kyle Rowley and Joe Camara, they probably have to take a look at this again and maybe not commit right away, but...
Yeah, I think you look at the numbers, it's not out of the question for anyone. I mean, they still got, you know, 1,500 and almost 2,000 votes in the mayoral contest. And you've got to see what happens over the next few months. You know, you've got till, I think, May, June to return your ballot.
I think July, toward the end of
Is it that
July,
late?
so the
Yeah,
end of
so
July, yeah.
you've got plenty of time and see what happens over the next few months. And, you know, when you're running, hope springs eternal.
Right. And I think for any of these candidates, for them to get 300 signatures in, what, 18 days?
Right.
I think they'll have plenty of time to get 300 between
Yes.
April and the end of July.
1,000 to run for the county.
Yeah, there you
Oh,
go.
see that? And Mr. Coogan, school committee man, Mr. Coogan did say that he respects the system, so that's it. Looks like we won't be seeing a recall at all. The crowd was chanting Coogan, Coogan, Coogan. But again, Mayor Correa re-elected, and we will see what happens in the next 5 months with some of the promises that he's made as well during the debates that we saw this season.
So let me ask you one other thing, Mayor. With the fact that Mayor Correa is still in office, we talked about the matter of unity for the city. It looks like there will still be some division going forward, at least for the remainder of this year. If things continue to play out the way they are, if the mayor runs and he faces opposition, what does that mean in terms of the city, in terms of trying to get back to some sort of cohesion?
Well, it's a democracy, so I always hope there's some division.
Right.
I think there's just too much concern. I think there are certain areas. I think on the economic development front, something's got to be done. You can't go with two so different approaches. I don't know that the breach is reparable, and if it's not with what used to be OED, then the mayor's got to do something on his end to get that kick-started. That economic aspect is so important. It meant so much over the years, and whether it's the the existing agency that's still out there, or one the mayor creates, something's got to be done with it, because it is going to impede, people coming in. Company like Amazon, not to take any credit away from it, but they're looking nationwide. They're doing it based on their own computation. But there are a lot of companies that you do have to convince, and you have to, you need a group of people who are talented, aggressive, to go out and get them. I think that's the biggest split, and perhaps one somewhat with the business community because of things like that. But as far as divisions, I mean, it's politics. There's going to be differences.
Time to move on.
And it is.
For a lot of people, it
it's
is.
good.
Right? Time
I
to
mean,
move on. This has been settled,
Yeah.
and now we move forward.
Yeah. And that's how you get, you weed out ideas. The weaker fall by the way, and the stronger come in. And, there's been a lot of things that have happened in the last few years that works. I think whatever the story is with the trash collection contract, it's certainly the pickup has been good, and it's worked well in that. So he's young, he's got a different view, and he's got a few months to, keep some of the promises and do other things. But it's going to be The early poll results show September very close.
There you go.
Well, we hope that you'll be back.
Well, I
We
hope I'm
you'll be
invited
in the
back. I'd
fall.
love to come back.
Thank you very much for watching, and thank you for being with us tonight. It was exciting. It was fast, right? They
It
come
was.
fast and furious. I'm Pamela Martin from Fall River Government Television and Fred TV.
And Keith Tebow from FRC Media. I'd like to thank Mayor John Mitchell again.
Thank you for
joining
having
us
me. I
tonight.
enjoyed
Thank
it.
you.
And
Thanks.
all of you, please have a good night, and we'll see you in the fall.